All right, I'm here today with my good friend Angela Hornsby. Angela and I met working with OFN, I believe.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
That's
I feel like I've known you for a while. I just don't know. We haven't seen each other in a long time, and
right.
then she just told me in the last couple of weeks we've seen each other quite a bit. So
Yes.
Zoom, it's a great thing, right? I
It
guess
is.
in some ways. Angela, let's start by tell us your story. You're an advocate, you're a partners grad, you worked for Oklahoma Family Network. Tell me how you got started in advocacy.
I guess with the birth of my youngest son, I'm a mom of actually three, 30, 21, and then Malachi is 9. When I got pregnant with Malachi, I was what they consider advanced maternal age. So of course I had to go through the process of all the extra testing that us older ladies have to do. And in the beginning, everything seemed really fine, actually. And what we thought would be my last appointment with the perinatal specialist, and we find out gender, we found out so much more than gender. We saw some fluid on his kidneys, we saw a heart defect. And so I opted for the amnio. The amnio definitely came back with a heart defect and also Down syndrome. And then there we were. And I thought that that would probably be the toughest part of being Malachi's mom, but little did I know. After, heart surgery and NICU, we were in the NICU. He was about 8 weeks early. Then at 2, he got cancer. So we went through about 6 months of very aggressive chemotherapy, and then 6 months of aftercare. But he's been great. He's in remission maybe 5 years now, and he's doing amazing. I was actually in Partners the year he was diagnosed. And that was really my real introduction into advocacy. I had sat on the board of the Down Syndrome Association. Obviously, I knew enough to want to desire to be an advocate to take Partners. But it was at that time where I had to stop. And other parents just like really, really stepped in and showed me what love of a community and what being a good advocate for myself and for others could look like. And so once we were done quarantining, because that's what we had to do, once we were done quarantining because of cancer, I just stepped right in. I had prayed. I said, when I go back to work, I wanted to be close to home. I wanted to be helping families like mine. I had this list of what I wanted God to give me. And he gave me that. He was barely done with chemo, and OFM was like, just bring him with you. So I have like all these pictures of my little bald-headed, chemo-ridden baby, in the office with me as I began to learn more and prepare myself to do more. So that's how I got here.
Yeah, that's quite a journey.
It was.
And I saw a video of him yesterday. It was him and you guys were having some kind of gender reveal.
Yes, my sister. Yeah.
And he was happy as could be now.
Oh,
And look,
grown so much.
yeah. So tell me about him. I mean, what's he like?
He's a great kid. I will be honest, and I have to tell everyone, his behavior is not all because of his ability. His behavior is absolutely a cumulative effect of our journey. I was older when I had him. The next sibling, she's 21, so he is my baby. And so he's a little rotten, but he's smart as heck. Like, he reads, like all the things Malachi didn't walk till he was 3. So for him to be, walking, running, reading, writing, like he's amazing. He's really smart. And And it's not all due to me. It's not all due to doctors. It has been an effort. We've had amazing teachers. We've had amazing medical care. And I've had amazing mentorship, to be honest. I can't thank the Aarons and the Wandas and, and those people in the U's. And, I've been able to watch other families, and it just really helps me, help him be the great kid he is. He's smart, talented. He told me last night that he was going to be a chef when he grows up, and he was going to make spaghetti and, what did he say? Spaghetti and like broccoli. That would be his menu. But just the fact that, he dreams of a future, are things that people think our kids don't do, won't do. And Malachi's going to be a chef and play instruments. So,
Hey, that sounds like a great plan.
yeah.
Yeah, well, and I like to tell parents, you were talking about how long it took him to walk and do some of those things. And we had the same thing with Connor. I was told several things. He may never walk, he may never talk, he may never do
Right.
this and that. There's a lot of different things. And I always tell parents, if somebody tells you that, just add yet to the end of it.
Exactly.
Because you don't know. Nobody can tell
Exactly.
you that for sure. So
No one can. And each of our kids, regardless of the diagnosis, we hear autism being on the spectrum. But I think, it's all a spectrum. It's not just autism. It is definitely all a spectrum. I look at his peers who are doing more things than him in some ways, and he's doing more things than them in others. It's definitely all, and that's why it takes the collective, and it takes other parents to say, get off of YouTube. I know that's what they say, but my kid does this, and, it's not a lost cause, because it can be discouraging. In those first few years, it can be very discouraging. And then you kind of settle into just parenting. If your child with special health care needs or a developmental disability is not your first child, you've already hopefully learned that each kid is different and you have to parent them differently. So luckily he was my third try. So I had already figured out that I have to treat him as the individual. And once I settled into that, and we weren't spending all of our days in doctor's offices and hospitals and things like that, we were really able to just kind of focus on him as a person first, people first. I had to treat him as a person first. And once we got there, he took the lead.
yeah, I like what you just said too. And for those people that don't know, we're kind of washed in that because that's what we learn is people first, people first. A diagnosis is nothing more than just that, a diagnosis. It's
Right.
something that we use to get the services that we need. Other than that, Malachi's just Malachi, Connor's just Connor, and it
Right.
is who they are. I mean, that's what they were born with. I love, and I know you got to meet Patrick Schwartz, but I love Patrick Schwartz
Yes.
because one of the things he says is, it's like a trait. Some people have red hair, some people have freckles, some people have autism, some people have Down syndrome.
Yes, exactly.
It's something they're born with, and I always
Something
love
they
that.
happen to have. I
Happen to have.
always hear people say, I'm a mom of a son who happens to have, Down syndrome. And I'm like, what? But he just happens to have
Yeah,
Down syndrome.
yeah,
Trust me.
that's right. No, I think that's it. I think that's a great way of looking at it. And the
Yeah,
first time I heard that, I thought the same thing. I thought, you know what, that makes a lot more sense than,
yes,
yeah. So,
absolutely.
well, you already hit on this a little bit, but tell me some of your mentors. Who are some people that helped you coming along?
Yeah, definitely. Aaron was like my first. Well, I take that back. I would say the Lori Wath and Cindy Gould. It was the Down syndrome community initially. That's where I got the idea of what to ask God for, because like Cindy was taking me, to OSU where she would speak to class. I'm like, you're just talking about your baby. That's what I want to do. So it was definitely the Down syndrome community first. And then it was from there that I was, kind of suggested try for partners. And that is where I met Erin. And she was great to me. But it was during treatment where I really met the ladies from OFN and Heather. And they have just been great to me, and it was a progressive journey, so I think Erin took me under, then OFN kind of opened up a door, which led to the infant transition program, which led to the DD council, you know what I mean, and partners led to Lend. So it's just this continuum of collectiveness that we, if the right door opens, which is part of my passion personally, because I think that my life does not mirror my peers' lives. And it just so happened that the right doors opened for me. So it's very important. And Wanda has been great with helping me, see that there is a desire to get this information out to other parents. Because I guarantee you that the parents in my school have no idea of what's available to help their children specifically, which in turn would help their families, as a whole. But the information, clearly it's there because I found it, but it is simply not as accessible to some. I mean, you understand, you're in the rural community, you know what I mean? I think that each demographic, be it finance, be it race, be it location, each of our demographics has a different way of receiving information. Excuse me. So I think it's kind of my goal to help filter that information, especially some young parents. I was almost 40 when I had Malachi. I had already learned some things about what's important in life. I had already learned some of that. And I can't imagine, I had my first child at 19. I couldn't imagine being Malachi's mother at 19. But there are people like that, you know what I mean, who have to take this on when they've not even fully learned the tools, the life tools, the plain old life tools of patience, of being comfortable in your skin and teaching your baby to be comfortable in their skin. And, especially in my community, leaning to the doctor versus family tradition. Because I heard for years, ain't nothing wrong with that boy. He fine. But no, there are definitely some things that I had to focus on that maybe my parents didn't have to focus on with me, or even I didn't have to focus on with my other kids, but I could not ignore them. So it's important for me to just kind of help those families, because even at the age I was, I'm single, my mom, I was, again, almost 40. My mom had to kind of relocate and soothe me through this and heal me through this. But all instill as much love and nurturing as she gave me. She'd never had a kid like this one. So I think it's important for parents like you and I, and for mentors like Wanda and Erin and Heather to help each other along the way, so that we can build a better community for our kids.
Yeah, you brought up a couple of things I kind of want to touch on that I hadn't even thought about, but one of those, isn't it kind of amazing, the journey, and you don't even realize. I tell people this all the time, that this is not what I was supposed to do. Anybody that's watched any of my videos or anything, I was supposed to be a rock star 10 years ago. I was on the road in a band. I wasn't supposed to be this advocate, but it's
Right.
amazing that it feels like God just opens the doors, and you were talking about those doors, and they just keep opening and keep opening as long as you're doing the right thing.
Right.
And it's just been an amazing journey, and I can't now, 10 years on, 11 years on, imagine what
Anything
else.
else?
Right. And the people
Mhm.
that you meet, the community, the network, the Wandas and the Aarons,
Mhm.
the Angelas and the people, I mean, it's just an amazing family. I feel like, you know, I started doing these interviews when we went into quarantine, thinking it'd give us something to do, and um, I had a list. In fact, I have this list of people. If you see your name on here and you want to do one, please do call me. But of people that I wanted to do interviews with, and you know, I've yet to be really turned down. I had some people that said they couldn't for certain things, but not just flat out turned down. And it's because we are an amazing community.
Absolutely. We are. And I think that for me, the advocacy tools that I have learned to be a parent advocate have taught me to be a much better self advocate. Like I take care of my space, myself on levels that I never would have been strong enough. Even if I, in the back of my mind, I was like, I would still just kind of go along and, don't make too much noise. But now I'm an advocate to my heart. I'm an advocate for all of the communities that I belong to, women, moms of, you know what I mean? It's just, once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. You know what I mean? And once you learn it, you can't help but share it, even if it's just by modeling behavior, you know, which I think again is it's a ministry. I kind of take everything back to that. I'm a church girl at heart, but it's a calling, it's a ministry. Um, and sometimes, as with anything, sometimes God's got to bring you down to a certain level, to build you back up. Because trust me, being Bubba's mom has definitely changed my economic standing, you know, but maybe not for the better. But the level of peace I have is like, I'll trade you a few dollars for this peace that I have now. And I just prefer it that way. I prefer to honor myself in all things, to make sure that he is honored in all things, and make sure that the things that are important to us, that I stand firm in them and I honor them and I share the information as best I can. We passed 802. I have some people that I know who are not happy, but again, I'm a self advocate, and 802 is a good thing for my family. You know what I mean?
Right, absolutely. Well, we had a lot of people here that were asking me what I thought about 802, and I said, look, as an advocate, I'm all for it. I
Mhm.
understand the downfalls. I understand the bad parts of this,
Right.
but I have to stand behind what I think
Mhm.
on this. And if you don't, I completely
That's
understand you.
right.
It's, you
That's
know,
right. Absolutely.
I want to hit back on what you talked about with your mom.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I've said this before several times. My dad was my blueprint. That was my
Mhm.
how to be a dad, you know,
Right.
and it was great, and it works with Cruz, my youngest, but with Connor, it doesn't necessarily work. So
Mhm.
you have to rethink your whole parenting situation, you know,
Absolutely.
idea behind it. So did you feel that way too? I mean, you kind of hit on that a little bit, but you're
Absolutely. I still today. And I probably will at some point later on this afternoon, because there's so many reasons, generationally, you know, on top of his abilities. And for me, singleness, like there's so many things that contribute to how you parent, and mom would always say, oh, you better get on him, or, you treat him like you treat everybody else. And it's like, I am treating him the same way I would have treated one of the children had their circumstances been the same. It's not just because he's Malachi, but it is absolutely because he's Malachi. But no, we definitely, as a family, I had to teach my mom people first language. She didn't get it. Heck, I didn't get it. I didn't know it was such thing. So it's definitely been educational for all of us. Thank God that for the most part, everyone around me has been open. I'll be honest, there's still people in my life who use the R word, but when they use it around me, they go, oh, I'm sorry, I gotta stop saying that. You know what I mean? And it's a process. It's absolutely a process. But I think where I am lucky is that those closest to me get it. Those closest to me get that I am passionate about many things for many reasons, but they're always open to hearing me out, including my mom. You know, she was obviously open to simply hearing about my day. What did you do at Lynn today? You know, what did you learn in Partners today? You know, that weekend class, that's what you call it. You know, what are you doing in that weekend class? Seeing me at the schools, you know, let her see something different in me, which, you know, you, just like with us, we just sit back and watch each other and learn from each other. And my mom was really willing and open to doing that. But mainly, I'm Bubba's mom. She stepped in and remothered me. Because I didn't know. I was like under the bed depressed. I was calling it insomnia. I just got insomnia. No, I was losing my freaking mind. You know, and she just came and she mothered me. You know, she moved back from Atlanta to a state that she knew nothing about because we're originally from Los Angeles, and mothered me and healed me and helped me, you know, shake it off and get back right. And that's what I can be his mom, you know, but I needed some nurturing to grieve, because, you know, it's a grieving process, you know. For me, it's like I knew this was going to be my last kid and everything was going to be perfect. And then I got slam dunked, and it's like, what could I do but call my mama and cry? And she did what mothers do.
What's some of the best advice you've ever received, and what advice do you kind of give parents?
For young parents, enjoy your baby. That was like, and it took some months for someone to remember to tell me that babies smell good, they eat, they poop. They may eat a little differently if it's a G tube, or, you know what I'm saying, or whatever, which was part of our journey. But babies eat, sleep, and poop. I'm not going to see any great delays in my child at, you know, 4 months old. And so to enjoy that time. And it was like, oh yeah, you know, let me just love on this kid. So that was probably the best initial advice. Early intervention was a biggie for me. I remember people saying, what do you mean he has speech? He can't even talk yet. You know, this will help him talk. You know what I mean? So things that I did not know about that other parents told me about. And I think what I tell people is parent to parent support is like, we can tell each other things that doctors, therapists won't even think will matter to us. Because at the end of the day, they take off their lab coat and their stethoscope, and then they go home to their typically developing families. So it was to rely on other parents was the absolute best advice, and the advice that I share most often.
I think that's good advice. The other thing that I would add to that is, as a parent, don't hesitate to help other parents. Because whether you think you
Mm.
have anything that can help, and it took me a long time to say, I don't have anything that I could help anybody with. I can't tell you anything that you don't already know. You'd be surprised what you may know that, and even if it's a small little something, it could help.
It isn't, you know, sometimes it's not even about the knowledge. So you bring me back. When I was on the board with DASCO, because I'm a nurse. I was born to be a mom. Like as a kid, people say, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'd be like, oh, a teacher. But in my heart, I just wanted to be a mom, like even as a kid, right? So that's what I know how to do. You know, my friends would be like, oh, girl, I'll come do blah, blah, blah for you. My give back is I could watch your kids. You know, I could cook you dinner and watch your kids, right? So while I was on the board at DASCO, I thought that it would be a good idea to visit parents who had children in the hospital. You know what I mean? And to do things, you know, I was washing clothes and, you know, because they were stuck at children's, or bring dinner on Sunday nights. And it was just what my heart told me to do. The little did I know that the shoe would be on the other foot. Like I remember my daughter freaking out because we had visited a young man with Down syndrome who had cancer, and Peter did not survive. We got our diagnosis. That was the room they moved us into, you know. But when I tell you my community stepped up, and I mean, even rolls of quarters, because they knew we'd be eating out of vending machines, you know what I mean? So we all have something to give. We just have to be open to giving it and not holding it to the sky. You know, the board could have been like, what do you mean go visit? Just go visit. You know, why do we have to make it a mission? But that was my big give. And I think it was preparing me to accept help, because it's not in my nature. But how could I, you know, how could I turn it down when I have been doing it, you know, for the past year or so for other families? So it opened me up to accept help from others.
That's all I got. I want to say thank you so much, first and foremost, for doing this today. I know you got a lot of other things you could be doing, so I appreciate your time. But
No
more than
problem.
that, I appreciate your friendship. I appreciate
Absolutely.
the advice. It seems like every time you and I are together, besides having a good time, because you just radiate this fun. So it's the smile.
Thank you.
But the other part of that is I seem to learn something every time I'm around you. So I appreciate that.
Appreciate that. I do. I'm just so glad that you thought of me, um, especially in these times. You know, I know that everything is politically charged, and you know, you could have went on the safe side and not, you know, found somebody who looked like me in this time. But honestly, you know, there are lines in the sand. And so, again, I say that I represent many communities, and I'm just glad that I'm still able, even if there's conflict in some areas, you know.
Is there something different about you than me?
Just a little bit.
Well, hey, you know
Girl.
what? I was gonna cut this short, but you brought this up, so let me ask you another question. All right, and you tell me how comfortable you are with this. I know
I'm
you, though,
comfortable. You know, I'm an open
very
book.
comfortable. When we talked about the cultures, you brought that up earlier, and I meant to go into this, and I just forgot. Listen, I'm from rural America. Okay, I'm a white man. Um, I I I see socioeconomic here. I see we have a whole lot of Hispanic and Latino communities but ours are concentrated in certain areas.
Right.
And then we have Native American. We do have African American communities too, but they're very sporadic around here. So I don't understand. Let me say this. How do I say this? I don't I can't pretend to understand. How's that for what I mean? I want to, and I definitely. Let me ask you because you talked about the culture part of things. How hard has it been culturally, as an advocate, as a mom, as a parent, to get the things that you need?
Very. I've had to sever a few relationships, even before this polarizing time, right? again, that's kind of what I was touching on when I said to advocate for myself. I've been in what were effectively good professional relationships on certain levels, but I felt like I was not honoring myself as a Black woman, you know, hearing things that didn't sit well in my spirit, but smiling and nodding. And I just got to a point a couple of years ago where I just was not willing to sacrifice that anymore, right? So it's been tough. And then I'll be honest, when I go to OKCPS in the 7311 school district, I raise big noise because I can say my peers in Edmond don't have the same problems that I have to get what they need for their children. Why is it that me, because of my zip code, why? And it just does not make sense to me. So it has definitely been difficult for me. And I'll be honest, with this polarizing time, it really made me, because we say all the time, two things we say all the time, that disability rights is civil rights, right? We say nothing about us without us. Those things apply to me on more than one level, you know? And so my ask of my community, of my peers was, do we mean that when we say it? Because if you believe disability rights are civil rights, it means we have to take a look at civil rights on the whole spectrum, right? If we say nothing about us without us, don't tell me that we don't need some oversights with community members involved. And if I can stand with you against autism, which does not affect me, you can stand with me on this, which may not affect you, but I stand with you because I love you and I see similarities with us, and I expect the same of my community. But overwhelmingly, my peers in Edmond, you know, those who my peers have been amazing in this time. They really, really have. And I did. I put the call out.
Well,
I put the call out.
yeah, and I think uh, again, I'm not going to pretend to understand. I've never been there. I don't have any. You know, I've never had. I say that. I, I I try to understand more because I look at it from the perspective as a father of someone with a disability, and I can say, look, I see the injustices in the disability world.
Right.
Am I comparing that to what we've got going with, civil rights? No, not exactly. I mean, I know they're not the same, but we have some similarities, and so I feel like I can better understand that. But we've got a long way to go in everything.
In everything.
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 Yeah.
However, I feel like this is a unique time in history. I think that as a result of these times, we will see some differences in race relations. And as a result, we will see some changes when it comes to disability rights. I mean, this is a perfect storm for change for us all. You know, with the civil unrest, with the COVID, with school having to rethink what they're doing, which is mind-blowing to me. Like, why are you struggling with online learning? These things should have been used for our babies a long time ago. You know, when we were in treatment for cancer, there were kids, there were sickle cell who were there for weeks and weeks and months at a time with a book and a piece of paper with no face-to-face interaction with their teachers. Why not? We should have been using these tools so long ago. So I think that now with this, you know, there's no way we cannot see positive outcomes from every tier, you know, if we take the time to find the similarity. Because if not, you're gonna fight me tooth and nail over the things that are not similar, as opposed to, okay, let's see where we can meet on this, and I'll help you with this piece and you'll help me with that piece, and we'll all win. you know, so that is my hope. I'm cautiously hopeful because I've lived through, you know, I lived through the Rodney King riots when I was in LA, like literally and it was a riot because like Tupac says, in LA, we riot, not rally. So like literally, you know, I have pictures of my older son playing catch with the National Guard in our front yard because they were stationed right there. You know, my mom lived through the Watts riots. Like, so I have seen these things happen again and again for the same reasons, right? But, you know, you can feel change coming, and I feel change coming.
I
So
hope so. I
I'm
hope so.
optimistic. I want to be part of the change. I want my peers to stand with me for the change. And, you know, kind of just like say autism wins a fight, you know what I mean? And then Down syndrome's going to benefit from that win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I want us to stand together for the big fight and watch it pour out into all areas of our world.
Yeah, because as I've said over and over again, autism, Down syndrome, whatever disability, we need the same things.
Absolutely. We need the same things.
Well,
It's,
partners taught me about disability world versus autism world. It's
that's where I
similar,
learned too.
but there's more out
That's
there.
where I learned too. Because I was all about Down syndrome. Like, what is that other stuff?
Yeah.
ABA, I don't need that. You know what I mean? But it did. Partners was a very good introduction because like I said, the disability world it didn't exist to me 10 years ago. I didn't know there was a fight, you know what I'm saying, for rights. I did not know that any of this existed. And so now that I do, how do I not spread that message to my typically developing, you know, peers and their families? And that's my ask for my peers. You know, maybe you didn't realize how crazy stuff is for families like mine. Yeah. But now that it's polarized in a way that you cannot ignore, I want you, how can you ignore it? You know, so that's what I ask of the people around me. And I'm willing to give the same in return, you know.
I'm glad we got into this, and